Welcome back. I'm Buzz Keogh. Here's what we have for you on tonight's episode of 30. Mark Seufer has been promoting Ocean City's virtues for more than 40 years, but this year the man who thought no contest was too silly if it brought more people to his beloved town retires. Features editor Tim Faraday sits down with Seufer to find out why. Chuck Masacchio walked away from boxing 3 years ago with a winning record, but at age 36, the Wildwood native is giving the sport another try, while also balancing a career as a high school guidance counselor. David Weinberg reports. Last week, we told you about a piece of Cape May's Victorian past. This week, features writer Vincent Jackson explores another side of the Cape May mystique, jazz. But first, residents and officials in Margate are fighting the state for the right to say no to sand dunes. Dan Skeldon explores both sides of that issue.
I'm Dan Skeldon of the Press of Atlantic City. Weather always a big topic here in South Jersey, especially with the likes of Joaquin and Jonas, and then a few years back, Irene and Sandy. Dunes now a very popular topic and very contentious topic, one that's still being debated in the courts along the Jersey Shore, especially in the Absecon Island town of Margate. And here to debate the dune issue tonight, Dr. Stuart Farrell and Vaughn Reel. Vaughn, former mayor of Margate and co-executive director of the Margate Citizens Questioning the Dunes Project. Dr. Stuart Farrell, director of the Stockton University Coastal Research Center. Appreciate both of you being here. And let's start with you, Vaughn. Not necessarily anti-dunes, but dunes aren't right for the city of Margate, and why?
That's correct, Dan. When you think about Margate, a lot of people think of a lot of wealthy people losing their views. And the fact of the matter is, only about 0.5%, less than 0.5% of the folks have a beach view. Yet 65% of the voters voted against the Dunes project. And the reason being is not that they're patently against dunes, it's because it's a bad project for Margate. From a risk retention tool, what you're actually doing is you're protecting the homes of multimillionaire vacationers. And what you're doing is you're taking tax dollars from your everyday ordinary people. In fact, by Dr. Farrell's estimates, New Jersey has spent, whether it's federal, state, or local funding, over $1 billion in the past 30 years pushing around sand. Now the issue with Margate is, and many coastal towns as well, 95% of our damage in a store comes from back bay flooding, not the beachfront. So if you're going to deploy a resource or use a valuable dollar to prevent damage to property, you approach the big problem, which is the back bay. In fact, in Superstorm Sandy, over 98% of the damage from the storm was due to back bay flooding. Only 2 homes on the beachfront put in for a relief grant, as where 98 from the back bay put in one.
All right, Dr. Farrell. Is there anything that can be done to mitigate flooding along the back bays, and how do you respond to Margate's view?
Well, the Army Corps of Engineers is just about to sign an initiative to address back bay issues relating to flooding, bulkheading, elevations, and dredging. And that particular initiative is part of the Public Law 113-2, where $45 billion were put on the table to address Hurricane Sandy issues going forward. Yes, the beaches have been nourished since about 1987 to the extent of approximately 100 million yards of sand at approximately, the figure was mentioned, $2 billion. Now, that's from Sandy Hook, or just where the park ends, all the way to Cape May Point. So we're talking about a project where the state of New Jersey has 80% of its developed coastal oceanfront under federal management.
Now, dunes can be eaten away, bulkheads cannot, and Margate does have one of the few Jersey Shore towns with a extensive and complete system of bulkheads. Tell us a little bit about that and why you think that's better than a dune, Vaughn.
Well, the bulkheading system in Margate is possibly one of the most robust on the East Coast, if not in the country. The average bulkhead height is close to 6 feet, and they're pretty much double wide when you go to see them. Our premise is that putting a dune in front of the bulkhead really isn't adding additional protection. Now, the city did offer a compromise to the state. We said, hey, fine, widen the beach if you want to widen the beach. And what we'll do is we'll build dunes the way that we build the existing dunes, by burying Christmas trees upside down, and then the sand naturally accrete around them. And you only do it in specific steps, in specific places. The concern that we have, and it's already materialized, our sand was a fine powder white indigenous sand to the shore. It's intentionally been replaced by thicker grained brown sand that is not indigenous to the shore. And what happens is when you create that wall that they're talking about, Margate doesn't have what you would consider a launching platform like a boardwalk. So when our older folks go down the beach, they're going to climb the steps over our 6-foot bulkheads. They're going to go across about 20 yards of beach. Then they'll have to go up a 12 to 15 foot switchback ramp, cross the dune, go down another 12 to 14 foot switchback ramp before they're at ocean front.
Can a dune project work along the shore with a Margate-sized chunk out of it? Can you go Dunes Ventnor, Bulkhead Margate, Dunes Longport, and still have that be an effective line of defense?
Well, the dunes actually do provide a significant benefit in terms of protection. The Margate bulkhead is at minimum elevation 9. Hurricane Sandy walked across it in grand style at Benson Avenue, taking maybe 2.5, 3 feet of sand the entire length of Benson Avenue, closing Atlantic Avenue and going on up towards Ventnor Avenue. Any number of folks had water in their homes as a result of waves coming over the wall. It's variable in its placement vis-a-vis the shoreline and in terms of the quality of the structure that it's made out of. Now, the city of Ventnor has sought to replace all of its own street ends at elevation 13. Now, to do that in Margate, it's going to cost them quite a bit of money to do that, and it will be 100% locally funded. The dune, on the other hand, is set to be built at 14.5 feet elevation. The beach is at elevation 6 at the back side of where the wall, the bulkhead is. So 6 and 14 is, you've got yourself approximately an 8-foot climb over the dune for public access. So as a consequence, you can get access to the beach if you engineer it right. And the issue about, of course, the sand, it's the same sand that was on Brigantine Island, because that's where it came from. So it's exactly the same sand that's always been out there. It wasn't brought in from any place offshore. It is from Absecon Inlet.
Again, sides, there are great points on both sides, and of course, we'll continue to cover it at pressofatlanticcity.com. Vaughn Reel, Dr. Stuart Farrell, thank you very much for being here today.
Okay.
Thank you, Dan.
I've been covering boxing in Atlantic City for over 30 years. Wildwood light heavyweight Chuck Basacchio is both one of the best and most interesting fighters I've come across because of his talent and his personality. Thanks for joining us, Chuck. How did you get into boxing in the first place? What was it about the sport that attracted you to it?
Well, when I was a little kid, my grandmother took me to Atlantic City to see the Tyson Spinks fight. When I was there, the electricity in the room for one man and one man only was Mike Tyson. I said, wow, this is something. I was a little kid when that happened, and I always wanted to get into it. My dad was an amateur boxer, and he would show me some things, but I never really took it seriously. But growing up, I played all the football, baseball, basketball, and my knees were just shot. I was a catcher from the age of 8 years old till I was 15, and I didn't want to play anymore, so I started boxing the following year, and 21 years later, here I am.
Okay. Well, what was your first pro fight like? Did you have a lot of people from Wildwood following it? Where did they show up to cheer you on?
It was a lot. It was April 2nd, 2005. I'll never forget it. It was at the Clarion Hotel in West Atlantic City. The day the Pope died, Pope John Paul passed away the same day. And that was so inspirational with a guy with such guts and heart to take on cancer head on and not get treatment for it. I mean, that takes a strong person, and that really motivated me. And when I looked at my opponent that night, he was a giant. I looked like a beanpole next to him, and he didn't scare me one bit after watching that. And I won 3rd round TKO.
Well, how do you balance your career as a guidance counselor with boxing? How do the students react to having a boxer as your teacher?
They love it. They ask me all kinds of questions about it. They get a lot of them come to the gym and work out with me. Not many of them last, but a lot of them come and they're interested in it. And I tell them right off the bat, if you decide you don't want to do this, it doesn't mean you're a punk. It doesn't mean you're a wimp. This is not for everybody. You got to stick with it. You got to want to do it. And if you want to do it, I'll teach you what you need to know. It's great working here. I really like it a lot. The main part that I like about this place is you're doing something. You know, you're accomplishing something. Every second of the day, you're accomplishing something. And you're consistently helping kids. You're consistently doing something productive. The last school district I worked in, the kids, the students, the parents, they all came out to support me. I've never gotten any opposition to it from any parents or faculty members. They're all, I mean, it's boxing, it's not a tennis match, so it is a rough sport, and they all understand that. I come in, drink my coffee, kids start coming in. Mr. Masacchio, I need transcripts for this scholarship. I need you to print transcripts for this college application. Mr. Masacchio, I applied to Rowan, so we need to send out transcripts and letters of recommendation. Mr. Masacchio, you know, there's stuff like that, and that starts from the minute you walk in until the minute we leave. You gotta develop rhino skin, because if you take it home with you, the stories that you hear, you're not gonna last very long. It's just, some of the stuff's heartbreaking.
My lead. I wouldn't be able to stay as focused as I am on this as my first fight in 3 years, 3 months, if it wasn't for Lower Cape May Regional High School.
You decided to walk away from boxing 3 years ago. What convinced you to give this another shot?
The fact that I'm not in boxing years, not young, but I'm not over the hill by any means. I spent 12 weeks altogether with Bernard Hopkins for his last 2 fights against Bebut Chumanov and Sergey Kovalev. So I wasn't out of the ring completely. I sparred with Isaiah Seldom for his last fight, so I was just recently in the ring. And just the feeling that you get, like that hour before you walk out to the ring, is what I miss the most. The anxiety, the fear, because I have a choice where I could leave and turn around and go home, or I could just walk down the aisle and get in the ring and get over my fear. And when you walk down the aisle and that bell rings and my dad walks down the steps and I'm all alone with another guy that wants to hurt me, and I go out there, you're fighting, you're on another plane, you're on another level. And now I may not win, I may take a beating, but that's just pain, and pain's only temporary. I have clarity, I have focus, and I overcame my fear of anxiety, and that's what I strive for. I chase that feeling.
Double her up. There you go, double her up. 1, 2. 1, 2.
I'm gonna win. I know I'm gonna win.
How long ago?
I'm adrenaline. I don't like. This is a feeling. It's addictive.
Fighting for the 18th time here in Flagtown, Atlantic City, the Professor Masacchio.
But you got clarity on purpose. You overcame that fear of anxiety. And that's the feeling I miss every day. And that's this is I'm high as a kite right now. I feel like I'm high as a kite right now. It feels so good.
What are your long-term plans for boxing? Do you want to go to the top again, or do you want to fight by fight? I mean, how are you looking at this?
I take the same goal that I had back April 2nd, 2005 is the same goal I have now. I'm not going to be a stepping stone for another fighter because I have an 18-3 record. I'm not going to be somebody's stepping stool to get to the top. I'm going to get to the top myself with the right management and right promotion and take it from there.
Well, thanks very much for joining us, Chuck. I haven't come across too many fighters who have succeeded both in and out of the ring. I want to thank you for taking the time to join us.
Thank you, Dave.
All 3 judges in favor of your winner by unanimous decision from Wildwood, New Jersey, Chuck the Professor Masacchio.
Cape May brings to mind Victorian homes, carriage rides, and lazy summer days. But New Jersey's southernmost town has also become a pub for live jazz. Modern jazz turned this tiny town, its restaurants, its bars, even its high school auditorium, into Jazz Central. In 5 short years, the Exit Zero Jazz Festival has become a treasured event for live music in Cape May. Such well-known artists as Wynton Marsalis, Dr. John, and Ramsey Lewis have performed at the festival. Today, I'm here with Michael Klein, the founder of the Exit Zero Jazz Festival, along with vocalist, drummer, composer, arranger, and past festival performer Paul Jost of Vineland. I want to know, why did you think Cape May would be a good place to establish your jazz festival?
Cape May has always been a place that I've found that was always welcoming to the arts. You know, there was a previous jazz festival in Cape May that ran for 17 years, and it's just always been a haven for artists, for music, for painters. And you can walk the whole town. There's an intimacy to it that really lends itself to the music, and I just think that we get some incredible performances at the festival, and I think that being in Cape May has a lot to do with that.
It brings art into the area. There's such a buzz about everything.
You know, the festival is in the shoulder seasons, and so it's at a time when the people who've been working hard all summer, they get a chance to chill out and enjoy themselves a little bit, and it really is a lot of fun to bring people coming into town and meld them with the folks who live there, and it's just a fun time.
But I know the festival is trying to develop new and younger fans through the Music Connects program. It's a collaboration between the festival, the South Jersey Jazz Society, and the Center for Community Arts. This spring, you had a Cubist painting and jazz exercise over at the high school.
I'm Patricia Neville. I teach Art 3 and 4 here at Lower Cape May Regional High School. I've been teaching here for 23 years at the end of this year. And this project that we're working on is called Music Connects. Advanced art students did a painting for the Exit Zero Jazz Festival, and each piece represents music and cubism in some realm. They were allowed to go with synthetic cubism, which incorporates a lot of color, or more or less analytical cubism, which is a little bit more monochromatic. You're going to see a lot of different styles. They all picked their own subject, and as long as they were dealing with something in the realm of music, musicians, jazz, we thought it would really complement the jazz festival for this year.
So what I'm painting is a very abstract scene of a cafe. I saw a painter online. I kind of looked at a few different of his paintings, and they were very geometric and kind of puzzly. And I decided that was a really cool style, so I decided to do it in his kind of style. And originally it was colored, but I didn't like the color, so I'm doing it monochromatic in brown. I don't have any paintings kind of like this, very abstract. All my paintings are very impressionistic or realistic.
This will probably be my favorite paint, just because it's larger than I usually do, and I'm using a lot of different colors than I usually do. My other paintings, I just use different colors of purple, red, white, and stuff like that.
I try to get students to really open up and go beyond the walls a little bit, so they're not feeling encumbered or restricted by certain things, just to let things go. And it's really empowering. It's a tough thing to get them to open up. It's a tough thing to get anybody to open up that way. But once you do and you start to make those connections, it's incredible. It's just a wonderful thing to witness and be part of, you know.
Paul, I know you've entertained at the Jazz Festival in the past, and you're going to be there this fall. Can you give us a demonstration of how a jazz musician on the harmonica improvises?
Down south,
I would like to thank both Michael and Paul for coming in today. If you want to learn more about jazz, be sure to check out the Jazz Festival or visit the Exit Zero Jazz Festival website.
Every shore town has a personality, and a big part of Ocean City's personality is that it's a place where a hermit crab named Martin Z. Mullis looks for his shadow on the beach every spring, a superhero named Trash Buster runs around, and an annual celebration of humor called the Doo-Dah Parade takes place, complete with a pie-throwing contest and a basset hound brigade. Well, the guy who gets the credit for this, or maybe the blame, is Ocean City's longtime public relations director, Mark Soifer. Mark, thanks so much for being with us.
It's a pleasure.
Mark, how did you come up with these things? What was the initial goal?
When I came to Ocean City, we were building up the spring, and there wasn't much of a public relations program then. And I thought I had some training in journalism, and I know that you have to come up with things that are different to interest the media. So I like to do parodies, and Martin Mollusk's parody on the groundhog. And so we got this hermit crab to come out into the circle of truth. He comes in, and he's 106 now. So yeah. So we have a Dr. Frankenstein and Nurse Perfect. They take his vital signs to make sure he's healthy enough to go into the circle of truth and see his shadow. Now we have had a llama. If a llama shakes her head, Big Mama Llama, that means that Martin has seen his shadow. So he's retiring this year, so we're going to honor his family. And they're going to give us a goat. And it's from the same farm, so Martin has trained this goat to do what he can do.
So if Martin sees his shadow, summer comes a week early at Ocean City. And as I understand it, Martin has always seen his shadow, is that true?
Well, except for one time, it was a little cloudy, he only saw a partial shadow, and that meant summer came 3.5 days early.
3.5 days early, so you split the difference. Not all the events that you've been involved in are goofy or funny. A lot of them are, but there have been a couple of big successful events that just bring thousands of people to town. The first night and the block parties, which are a lot of work, but I'm sure you still bring humor to your work when you do them.
Yeah, well, I do. The block party, we were looking for something in the spring to draw a crowd. We tried a boat show, didn't work. I was driving through the north end of town, and I saw some people that were celebrating their block, their new block, the improvements to the block. So I went back to the office, and there was a lady named Jean Mimnall. I said, that worked with me. I said, Jean, we should have a big block party downtown. And I know the people in Ocean City would like that. They would like to all get together. And she said, yes, and we should have crafters. So I said, that's a great idea. The crafters really made the block party at the beginning, and there's a lesson behind that. You should always listen to people, because you don't have all the ideas.
That's a good lesson. Yeah. So with everything that you've done for this city, what do you think your biggest contribution to the city has been?
Well, I think help keep the family resort image intact. And that's very important. Every advertising age once wrote, every community, every business should have a unique selling feature, something that nobody else offers and nobody else does. And that's what Ocean City does down here. The family atmosphere here, you can't find that anywhere except for Ocean City. And that's why it's built up so many people over the years.
Now, a lot of these events that you're involved in have a musical component. You usually write songs for them, including you have a band that comes to some of these events.
Can I talk?
Sure, go ahead.
We have the world's only wind chimes band. Yeah, the real tinkle group, and so the Martin, they're going to play for Martin this year. They do every year, and he likes songs from the Depression era. He's 110 years old in hermit crab age, so he had to go through that whole depression. So I wrote a song called "Brother, Can You Spare a Chime," and that's a big hit on the
wind chimes charts.
Yeah, #1.
As well as writing that kind of thing, you're also a pretty serious poet. You write some funny poems, but you also write more mainstream things. You've put out books of poetry. You've been published in a lot of literary magazines, the New York Times, Reader's Digest. I wonder if you might read a poem for us.
Well, I certainly would like to do that. I've written this new book. It's called A Nation of Things. It's about inanimate objects, and it was inspired by Wallace Stevens, a remark by Wallace Stevens, who's a famous modern poet. Not ideas about the thing, but the thing itself, to lay the thing itself out on the page. And this is called The Objects of My Affection. The bed, a lamp that reads what I've read, anything in the house that's not dead, a floor that creaks, a furnace that speaks, photographs aging into antiques, molding racing below the wall, telephones waiting for a call, the silence that surrounds it all, the silence that surrounds it all.
It's nice.
Yeah, I think things have a personality, and I think I always wrote about things, and I think poets have that instinct, because you can see poet after poet, a lot of them have got to become attached to inanimate objects. Had their old house and so on and so forth. Philip Larkin, famous English poet, wrote a great poem about his house and coming back to the house and so on.
So Mark, in your job with the city, what do you think has been the most rewarding thing that you've done?
Practical thing in a way. Way back about the 1950s, the people weren't that greatly enamored with putting their tax money out for tourism. And so a mayor in Wildwood, Guy Musiani, went to the state and had him put an addition to the mercantile tax. And I thought that was a great thing, and that was to be devoted to tourism. So I went to the mayor and I asked the mayor, I said, let's do this, and he said yes. And I got the enabling legislation, talked to the council about it, and they passed it. Now, that's what makes me happy. It's more than paying my salary. It's brought in millions and millions of dollars into the city, and nobody else seemed to grasp it at that time.
So Mark, if I asked you to sum up your legacy in one word, what would that word be?
I'll be lucky. I got to do the thing that I like to do. When I was a kid, I worked in a lumber yard, unloading lumber from boxcars and boxcars full of cement. I worked with great men that were more or less forced into these jobs, and a lot of them, I'm sure, would have rather been doing something else. But I got to do what I like to do, and it doesn't get any better than that.
It doesn't get any better than that. And it doesn't get any better than a conversation with Mark Seufer. Thanks so much for being with us, Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Here's a little of what we're working on for upcoming episodes.
Once they get a little ways down, then they can burrow through the sand themselves and create their own little caverns.